Hello, my name is Enzo Reese, and I would like to talk a little bit about my own experience as a male athlete, soccer player in specific, and share what my experience mentally has been. So growing up, I've always had a lot of pressure put on me by coaches, parents, teammates, and it's really hard to balance all of that. But I think it's just learning and realizing it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes happen and you have to move on. And that's what I've been telling myself for I don't know how long now, but for quite some time. And it's definitely hard with the pressure. I think the hardest pressure I've received is from my dad, and it's not in a bad way, because I know he means the best and wants what's best for me. But it's hard to live up to his standards and to what he was, because he was a great soccer player during his time when he was younger. And I know he knows a lot about the game, but sometimes it's a lot to live up to what he's doing, or even my brother, because my brother is playing soccer professionally in Spain right now, and it's really hard to yeah, I'm just here trying my best, and I do love soccer, but I just want to prove to them what I can do. But then I have to realize and take a step back and be no, you don't have to prove anything to them. Do it for yourself, because it's what the game means to me and not to them. And I fell in love with this game, having fun, playing with joy, and playing for myself and not for anybody else. So at the end of the day, I just really focus on what I can do to improve myself, and what I can do to focus on how I can do better, and not what I did bad, but learn from it, not just dwell on it and let it bring me down. And then I'd like to talk a little bit about my lecture, I focused a lot on Richarlison, who is a male athlete, Brazilian as well, plays soccer for a team called Tottenham, which is my favorite team. And then I also talked about Allen Iverson, who I don't know a whole lot about, but I interviewed some fellow classmates who knew more about him and spoke about him a little bit. But focusing more on Richarlison, I like to talk about how I can relate to him. So obviously we're both soccer players, we're both Brazilian, that's the obvious thing. But when he came out and said he has a lot going on mentally, it was because of his injuries and stuff going on outside the sport that he didn't talk about, he didn't tell anyone. And I can relate to that, because there's stuff that I have going on outside of soccer, whether it has to do with school or social relationships or just things like that, it definitely affects your in game, and it's really hard to let it slide. But sometimes seeing how Richarlison came out and said what's going on in his head in therapy, because he's supposed to be this big superhero, he's a professional soccer player, he's not supposed to have anything going on, but he does. And he came out, and I was really happy about that, because it gave me confidence to be it's okay to be sad sometimes. I don't have to live up to everybody's expectation. They can have their expectations, but the only expectation that really matters is the one I set for myself. And seeing where Richarlison come out and just saying things like that really inspired me and made me want to bring more attention to this topic, which is why this was the chosen topic for myself and for me to teach the class about and teach yourself about it. Thank you. I will now be showing some interviews that I did with Sam Joseph, Caleb Green, and Marcus Horvath. Hello, who am I here with today?
Caleb Green.
I just want to ask you a few questions based on mental health, mainly focusing on the perspective of male athletes. As a male athlete yourself, can you speak on your personal experiences on and off the volleyball court, whether it has to do with injuries or other problems you'd be comfortable with talking about?
So, to me, injuries probably pertain more to me because when I switched over to volleyball from basketball, I played club, and over that season I got an injury in my knee. And I had to go to physical therapy for a while, but I had to miss a lot of games and practices, which I definitely didn't feel good about.
For that injury, was the hardest part the actual physical recovery part, or was it taking it on mentally?
I would say this is taking it on mentally, because when you're missing all these practices and games and you're an integral part of the team, they're all reaching out where are you, so probably more mentally, but also physically, because I physically couldn't like jump as high or perform as well at different games and tournaments.
Okay. And then you actually just spoke a little bit about you switching from basketball to volleyball. Since how was that? Like, how was that big switch? Like, what was going on through, like, in your head during that time?
Well, initially I wanted to stay playing basketball and play both basketball and volleyball, but early in the basketball season, both because of my injury and I just wasn't really feeling like the basketball team as much, I guess, because like I wasn't a big fan of the coaches and the massive time commitment that they take. I feel like I couldn't balance all of, like, because I was playing club at the time, basketball, studying for school, going to physical therapy. I couldn't balance it all.
Okay. And then, do you miss basketball at all? Like, how does that make you feel, like, mentally in your head?
I mean, I do miss basketball. A lot of people were expecting me to play. Of course, with the interview, people wanted me to play. And I guess I'm disappointed to not play, but I'm happy I have so much more free time.
Okay. And then just focusing more on, like, a mental aspect now with, like your sports in general and just, like, how you take it on, like, off the court, not as much on the court.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat the question?
So, like, thinking about, like your mentality now, like, how do you deal with everything, like, off the court and, like, with everything going on the court? Like, how do you, like, balance it all?
Sometimes I do, and I'm getting better with managing these things, because when I'm playing on the court, both basketball and volleyball, depending on, like, how I'm feeling, how stressed I am, like, directly correlates to how well I'm playing. But I've gotten better to just sort of, you can't really forget, like, everything else, but the focus on the game and just manage my time better with doing all my schoolwork beforehand and being able to manage all these things.
And are there any outside pressures on you as well, or anything like that makes you more stressed out with volleyball or basketball?
Mostly academic stress, but in sports, people do put like a high expectation on me, so if I'm ever underperforming, I don't feel good about it, obviously, and that does take a toll on how I'm feeling, but yeah.
And then what have you done to grow and learn from these, like, instances?
I've learned to manage my time better and to work with, like, other people I can talk to and other things like that.
Thank you, Caleb. Mm-hmm. Who am I here with today?
Marcus Horvath.
I'm just going to ask you a few questions to do with my topic, which is mental health, but focusing on mental health in male athletics. As I talked a little bit about a few people I've heard of in mine, Richarlison and Allen Iverson, but you mentioned Jarren Duran in class. Could you speak a little bit more about him and his situation and what he has told the media about?
Yeah, so Jarren Duran is a professional MLB player for the Boston Red Sox. He plays center field, and he's been in the league for about 5 years now. And his first couple of years in the league, he was really at nothing. Like, he was making a lot of mistakes in the field, dropping fly balls, not doing so well at the plate, striking out, having a low batting average. And people could see, like, his mental health would struggle. Because, like, if a ball got past him, he would walk to the ball. He wouldn't, like, sprint. Like, he really had no motivation of getting better. Although, throughout his MLB career, he's gotten a lot better. And actually, last year he made the All-Star game, and he actually won the MVP, All-Star MVP. And just a few months ago, he came out with there was this documentary, or like a Netflix show documentary, yeah. And he admitted in 2022, when he was going through those struggles in the field, at the plate, just mental health, going through those struggles, fans yelling at him, he actually admitted in 2022. He admitted a few months ago, and he said that in 2022 he was in his room, and he had a rifle with a bullet in it, and he pulled the trigger, and it didn't shoot. It just clicked. And he was saying, like, how he's glad that nothing shot because he found, like, God and stuff, and everything came back to him. And as you see, he got better, winning All-Star MVP. And, yeah.
That's really, really cool. I've never known about MLB or anything like that, so it's really cool to learn about. And can you speak a little bit about your own personal experience on and off the basketball court, and like when you're struggling mentally because of a bad game or bad practice or something, where you turn to?
So if I have like a bad shooting game, because that's really like my main thing in basketball, I usually shoot a lot. If I have a bad shooting game, like I think about what I did wrong, and like I would practice to see what I can do better to become a better shooter in those moments. If I'm having an off game, I'll just keep shooting, keep practicing, and yeah.
Does it ever tend to get to your head when you have a bad game, or do you ever like tend to get on yourself too much or too hard on yourself?
Yeah, if I'm having a bad game, like I know my potential, so like I wouldn't be that upset with myself because I could just say it's an off game, but sometimes I'm like in a slump where I'll have like consecutive bad games, and that's when I'll start like getting hard on myself and like wondering what's wrong.
I know you're a very religious person. Do you ever turn to God during those times?
Yeah, I would usually at night I would pray to God, and when I'm praying to God I would ask him like to help me with these struggles.
Okay. And then what else have you done to grow and learn from these instances other than praying? And
Really just experience, because I've been playing since I was a kid, and I've had like these slumps like a lot of times. So really just experience helps me like to like get better.
Okay. Thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
Hello, who am I here with today?
Sam Joseph.
I'm just going to be talking to you about the topic of mental health, mainly in male athletics. For someone who knows so much about basketball, I spoke a little bit about Allen Iverson in my lecture. Could you tell me anything more about that if I missed anything? Or just about the NBA culture in general?
Well, I mean, I think you talked about the situation where Allen Iverson missed a practice, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that the entire culture of the NBA in, throughout time has changed a lot. Like at the very start, people were just playing, not making too much money, but then in the 80s, people started playing, it was a very physical game. It was like you had to go out there regardless of what's going on, and mental health was kind of ignored. In the early 2000s, that was still going on, and that's when Allen Iverson was a superstar. And Allen Iverson had to go through something where the fans wanted you to play no matter what, and that the culture of the NBA was kind of, and really professional sports in general, you had to go out there regardless because mental health was completely ignored. Allen Iverson, I think it was his friend that died, right?
Yeah.
His friend died and he missed a practice. He had like an iconic, moment in an interview where he was talking about it, where he missed a practice. He didn't even miss a game. And, I think it's gotten a lot better now where people are excused a little bit for their mental health. There's a guy named Ben Simmons. He was having some mental health issues, and he got a lot of media backlash, but he was able to miss some practices and games because of what he had going on.
Yeah, that actually leads me into my next questions. I was going to ask, are there any other athletes you're very interested in that you have a lot of knowledge about that like have also had problems with these mental health issues that have like come out about it?
Yeah, I think that Ben Simmons is one of those guys because he played on my favorite team, the 76ers, and in 2021, he passed up an open shot in a very crucial game, and I don't know if that's what led to his mental health issues, but he was having a lot of mental health issues that offseason, and he stopped playing for a little bit. He was missing practices, missing games, and I think that probably helped him out. But at the same time, you got to look at the other side of it, which is sometimes these athletes are now missing and using mental health as an excuse unnecessarily. Like Ben Simmons missed a lot of time, and I'm sure a lot of it was for his mental health, but then a lot of it was because of the media backlash he was getting, just because he was missing. And Philadelphia's a very strong fan base, but
Yeah.
because he was missing, fans were really, really upset with him. And, you know, I feel like he missed some extra time that he didn't need to.
Okay, I feel you. Yeah, it's really hard to like manage and control it, but it's like I'm trying to bring more attention to it because then maybe people will be more understanding of it and all this. And also, like, how about you yourself, like your personal experience with mental health? Like, have you had any problems playing basketball, like on and off the court? Like, how has that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, I had some things coaching-wise, like in my freshman year, I had certain coaches, not necessarily for school, but like in general, that, you know, were very, not just intense, but just said things that kind of like still I think about. Like one of my coaches said something that like kind of still bothers me like to this day, and I think there's a balance between like coaching and like making your players better, and like, you know, parents or fans being like supportive or giving criticism, and, you know, taking it just too far where it's not really helping anyone. And I think it's the same thing with like professional mental health, because, you know, fans can say things, coaches can say things, but it gets to a point. I mean, when athletes start receiving death threats or things like that because they're not playing, that's where it just becomes excessive. But I think that, you know, it's necessary to get some feedback, but it's also necessary for the people to understand what's going on in your head.
And then what have you done to like grow from these instances and move on, become a better player or person?
It just mostly takes time, and if you look at, you know, what was said, and you don't think about like the tone or like how it was said, and you look at the actual message behind it, which is one of the hardest things to do, you can kind of use it as fuel. But that's something that took me a lot of time to understand, because at first it kind of crushed me. So
Thank you, Seth.